Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Someday with Jay Barsky. I know it's been a long time since I've done something, an episode, or even a solo podcast. So I had to look back. I think January 2024 was the last time I actually did a solo podcast in which I did goal setting. I've mentioned a lot of things on there that allowed me to take a break of doing solo podcasts, and I just did a lot of interviews since then. I've been always wanting to get back to doing a solo, but just didn't have time to, or just didn't wasn't able to kind of give any updates of what was going on with me, along with some of the things I wanted to mention as well. But as you know, I've been trying to limit this episode or try to limit these episodes to one episode each month. That's just because I'm still occupied with doing the other things of I want to say my creativity that I do. Because, if you've been a listener of this podcast before, you know that podcasting is not the only thing that I do. I also do my comedy through my social media, through my stand up, and through other endeavors that I do try to pursue. Podcasting is just one of them. I would like to say that podcasting is kind of the heart of what I'm trying to do, though. If anyone I think during the social media postings and through the stand up, that's really opportunities for me to advertise about myself. But anyone that wants to know who I am and what I'm about and things that I have to say would actually listen to this podcast. But lately, I've been more focused on my comedy through the stand up, through the social media, especially on through the social media, because that's when I noticed I get a lot more traction is when I do like some of the comedy motivational reels that I do on my social media, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. But as for my stand up, I'm still working on that. But that is probably what I think people least see about me. And like, especially because I don't post too much of my stand up, there's not a lot of opportunity for me to post a lot of stand up, especially when I do some stand up rooms, and not all of them are like post worthy of me to actually promote a reel or something like that. Sometimes it's in a room with very little to people. Even though they laugh, you don't really hear the laughter. So that's why if you ever look at trying to see my stand up reels, I don't have too much of those, but I've been lately, the more I do the stand up, every once in a while I do get a chance to post something. Still focusing on writing clean material. I finally finished writing a 8-10 minute clean material that I'm now able to do open mics with and go to shows with. I'm still trying to focus on being more clean. I am trying to, my hope is, and I'm still continuing with this goal since I've last mentioned goal settings, is to get a on dry bar comedy special. So I'm still focusing on that, still trying to write more comedy material, focusing on clean that I feel like would adapt well with that outlet. But I still want to use these podcast platform to more to send a message out to send to people in regards to me trying to develop those motivational singles and albums that I am more focused on trying to work on this year. I'm also trying to do opportunities of improving this podcast. If you notice a big difference compared to what I was doing before, is that the background. So before in the background, you always would just see a purple cloth just covering the background. This time I decided to go raw and not do the cloth anymore. I think it was just too much for me to set up. And I think I have a good enough background that I don't need to probably use the cloth anymore. The cloth was kind of as to hide other things that I had in my room, that at least now I have some more space. And I think this works out. I have enough lighting. It took some time because I had to just find the right lighting for me to do these episodes, especially when I have interviews. Because the problem with interviews, they range in time. And if it gets a little dark, I kind of rely on the sunlight to have good lighting. So especially if I have any like Zoom interviews that I have to do, I think if it's later in the afternoon or it gets in the evening, I think I'm pretty safe with the lighting. I haven't really tried it too yet. I'm experimenting. This is why I I'm still not sure what things to do on this podcast. I'm trying new things just to see if it works out. But my goal is also to travel more with the podcast. I do want to take this podcast on the road to see people, to visit people, to have different backgrounds. I love to just the variety. The challenges is always working with the sound and video. Sound I'm pretty good on. I think I'm mastering the equipment when it's sound. It's just video that's really difficult because I'm using my Sony camera right now that I'm looking at with you all. But as for like when I do like the actual interviews, especially in person, I have a second camera which belongs to my phone, which the camera is good on that in itself. I'm still figuring it out as long as I go. I do realize that if I do travel and try to do other areas, that it's going to require maybe some more equipment, maybe some more extension cords, or I just know like cords, extension cords, depending on where's the nearest outlet that I can plug in, is really what the challenge is going to be when I do these podcasts on the road. Saying all that though, I'm still figuring out the podcast. I know I'm like I think I'm over 30 episodes into the podcast. I've mentioned before that my goal is to reach 50 at least. I won't stop till I get to that 50. I know it's been a long break since I've done this the last episode of the podcast. I think the last episode I posted was an interview up in October of last year. So now I think that's pushing like over 6 months since that podcast. But I just want to refocus on the single podcast again because I haven't, or the solo podcast again, because like I said, it's been a long time since I've posted a solo podcast, and I do want to do more of those. Those are opportunities for me to like a lot of information out to you, to share a lot to you. I still have a lot to say. It's just a lot for me to sit down and put it on paper and try to organize my thoughts and try to do some research as well. And the other reason why I kind of took a long break is because I was at a standstill with the podcast. I was limited on my equipment, limited on funding, limited on finding guests. So I kind of had to, whenever I have challenges like this is why I have different outlets for me to practice my creativity and my art. Because there's going to be times when I'm a little kind of at a standstill during my different outlets of art, whether it's in my stand up, because I could be limited on my material, just can't really kind of used up all my material in these rooms, that I probably need to travel more and just go to different rooms, and that I haven't worked on enough material. So I need to sit down and write more. And maybe I might have writer's block and just not able to write. So it just allows me to maybe work on something else. So then I have the podcast, or then I want to do something more with my motivational outlets. If you're a longtime listener, you know that one thing I really want to do is have more motivational speaking opportunities. So I took a pivot after the podcast to just more focused on my stand up, because when I was focused on the podcast, even letting an episode a month to be aired took a lot for me to do the editing, the recording, the planning, the setting up, the scheduling. So I didn't really have opportunities to work on my stand up. So now that I took a break from it, then I finally got back into stand up, trying to write my material, try to recite it, and now to the point where I memorize it that I can easily just go to rooms without needing to feel like I recite or get nervous because I might forget my lines. But since then, I actually posted a comedy EP or album or EP, whichever how you want to look at it. And I was able to do a show at the Boca Black Box 2.0 in Boca Raton, Florida, in which I did a feature act. And I featured for one of previous guests, which was my good friend Bert Cornelius. So I took the recording from that and actually just added that to some recording on another set, a really good set in a really good room, and I put that together, and I was able to post an EP with some like stand-up material called Unk Life. So if you look up my Apple Music and Spotify, you'll see that the EP is actually released there in case you want to go ahead and listen to my stand up material if you're not really familiar with it. I'm almost close to an actual full album. Still working on that, try to do a little more rooms with this new material, but once I've gotten into a decent room where I can use that audio, I can mix it with the previous sets that I've had and kind of make a mixtape of that comedy album. But I hope you didn't feel like you missed out too much of me. I mean, I've always been really active in my social medias. Even if I wasn't posting anything in the podcast, I still was active and doing like any motivational postings, comedy postings through my social media outlets. I do try to stay active on that, even though like some outlets I'm not active in. But I did take a break from the podcast just to do a lot of self reflection on my part as someone that likes to consider myself a creative person. And I had to find myself to do a lot of hibernation. I think hibernating is really important for me to do in my creative process. One thing I've been doing a lot is reading when I consider during my hibernation. And this is when I say hibernation, I mean, I was not even doing stand up, not really little do the postings, but not even doing that, not really being that active in my socials. I just wanted to not be creative and try to be inspired by other creatives. Because I always don't like to be always focused on being an artist. I'm not, I mean, there's more to me than the J the Jay Barsky role that a lot of people see. And I think me being the non-creative at times helps me just inspire me to become a human being and just be like a regular person and try to just enjoy the art of others, just how people are inspired to enjoy the art of mine. But one thing I've drastically had to reduce was my reading. It really was taking over a lot of my time. That's one reason why I just didn't inspire me to be creative because I just wanted to read. I wanted to lay down, I wanted to read, I wanted to sit down, I wanted to read. I realized that I'm addicted to just reading. That it could be anything. It could be a science book, fiction, nonfiction, biography, even couple of hard reading, like older books or even these science books. I just want to read them, even though sometimes they're not really something that's of great interest to me. And just having something to read that's very helpful and therapeutic for me. One book that I would say that really inspired me to really try to get back into doing these podcasts is reading School of Greatness by Lewis Howes. That book really made me realize that I live to create, that I can't always just consume everything I see or read, whether it's these movies where I read a lot of books. Even if that yes, books are educational, they help you, they get more knowledge and stuff like that, even if that's not the purpose of reading that book, but also at the same time, I'm consuming too much. I'm just sitting there consuming. Whether I mean, it's not as bad as watching TV, obviously, but the fact that I'm not creating, and that's what in the School of Greatness was talking about, that you live to create, and that a lot of people like have developed their longevity in life is because they're constantly creating. If they're not creating, they really don't feel like they have no purpose to live any longer. And I even as I'm reading these books, I'm reading about other people who are doing great things. And obviously, I want to do great things. I want to do creative things. I want to continue my creative process. And I'm not really feel like I'm fulfilling that purpose while I'm just reading. Even though I love to read, I need to take a break from that reading, from that hobby that I have in order to develop my creativity, which is one of the outlets is doing this podcast. All right, so now I want to talk about something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while. And at the time when I wanted to post this, Thanksgiving was coming up. So, as I mentioned before, the last interview podcast that I had, I believe, was in October. So, when I posted that in October, I had the inspiration to do a solo pod to post that on November, which at the time that month is Thanksgiving. And one thing I always wanted to talk about was gratitude. But then I held on to it only because I wanted to take a break from the podcast, but I still still wanted to talk about gratitude. Even if it's going to be another month, I was like, you know what? This is why I kind of want to open up the solo podcast, anyways, because I've already committed to talking about gratitude, even though there's other topics that I could talk about. I want to still focus on gratitude because you shouldn't have gratitude just because it was Thanksgiving, just because it's around the holidays, because you should be having gratitude all year round. That's the point. I want to first off define gratitude for you. And gratitude is the feeling of being thankful and appreciative for the positive things in life. So, having positive emotion, affirmation of goodness, and a social emotion is something that you develop when you have gratitude. During my meditative practices, I find myself being thankful a lot without even trying. I know there's people will mention like list opportunities of things that you are gratitude about. And one thing when I notice when I'm meditating, I don't, and this is something I really don't try to do. It's not something I ignore to do as well, but it's not something like, okay, this is what this is the agenda to do when I'm meditating. It just kind of, when I'm doing my meditation practices, it just comes across as, wow, I'm really thankful that I've had that experience, whether it was that day or the day before, or even something that hit me years before, whether it's a bad experience, good experience, or a mediocre experience. I'm very thankful of what I had experienced. And during my meditative process, my head, I break it down and why I became thankful for that incident, because it kind of led to other incidents happen to finally for something that actually worked out for me. And then I just think that people don't realize the best things that at their disposal are free. The best things that they can do is free. It doesn't require them to buy a nice car, live a nice lifestyle, to have a boat. A lot of the best things in life are free. One of the best things that you can do that's free is going to a park and having some fresh air. One of the best things to do is just get that fresh air. That's why I try to take every opportunity that I can to get fresh air, to go outside, to have a nice walk, to go to the beach, just to read a book outside. I love just having that opportunity to just have fresh air and expose myself to that. And when you have the freedom to enjoy those things that are simply free, you have gratitude that, wow, I don't have to spend money just to have this. And I'm so thankful, grateful to have these things that are free to me, that are so good for me, that I didn't even realize that I have. And when I wake up, I'm so thankful for the full night rest. I don't always have a full night rest. It's always very disciplined of me to get a lot of things that I need to get done by 7, 7:30. Having a nice early rest, cutting it off in my screen time by 8 o'clock, and just reading a book till I go to sleep. So I'm probably trying to get to bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock, in which I'm able to wake up really early in the morning so I can go have a nice gym workout. There's times when I wake up at 4, 4:30 in the AM to go to the gym. And even me waking up at those times, there's still times when I'm still really tired, but I still get up. But there's times when I have had an amazing rest. I went to bed early. I ate very early, so my body digestion, it doesn't keep me up at night. And I wake up early enough with a full rest that I'm by the time I'm up at like 4, 4:30, I'm ready to get up and take on the day. And I have such gratitude for all the things that I did yesterday or the night before in preparation for that day of. It's a domino effect on me, so I can go to the gym and listen to a podcast, which I love to do when I'm doing my workouts. There's times when I don't listen to anything. Lately, I just not have any headphones on myself, but I am so grateful that I have those opportunities, that I'm like, wow, I'm thankful that I finished. I did all that day before, so I don't have to worry about that in the morning. So I have a good night's rest and I can go to the gym, listen to a podcast, and be thankful when I get out of the gym, because I'm even more thankful of that when I leave the gym, because my body is feeling energized that day, that I knocked out filled up my quota and my hour workout, got a nice good sweat in, whether it's lower body day or upper body day, mixed in with some cardio and core workouts. And I feel so thankful for just having those opportunities, that it just allows me to thankful that when I get to work or just do other things later in the day, that I feel like I can take on anything. Because the first thing I did when I knocked out first thing in the morning was I knocked out the hardest thing, which was getting up early and going to the gym. It reminded me of a book called Eat the Frog that I recently read, in which the hardest thing that you have to do that day should be the first thing that you do, even if it's something that you can't take on directly. you should be taking on steps to on overcoming that obstacle that you have. You should take the biggest, nastiest frog that you have that day and try to eat it. That's why it's called Eat the Frog. And just being out in nature just deepens my connection to life, that I'm more living my purpose, that I'm being outdoors, that my body's being exposed to sunlight. Not too much sunlight, but just enough for to give me that vitamin D that I need. And that I notice that what affects me at 4 a.m. when I wake up impacts me on what happens to me by 4 p.m. when I'm mostly done by the end of that day, whether it's from finishing work or doing some stuff. But I think it's really important to break down your day in the morning. Lewis Howes talks about in the School of Greatness that he recommends develop an itinerary during your day. So just a breakout when you wake up in the morning. Some people you can write it down. I think he mentions listing it down, but I do break down my day of okay, first thing in the morning, okay, what I'm gonna do by 9 o'clock, this is what I'm gonna do by 10 o'clock, by noon. Am I gonna have lunch? Did I have a big enough breakfast that maybe I can skip out lunch? Or did I have a small enough breakfast that I can actually eat lunch, but make sure I don't overeat? I'm a big fan of On Purpose with Jay Shetty. So he talks about how gratitude is contagious. So if you can't find anything to be thankful for yourself, start being thankful for others' accomplishments. This is nice to have if there's any friends that you have, any family members, even someone that you don't have a close relationship with. You can be proud and be grateful that you notice that they are grateful for what they have, and then can be grateful for what they have. Gratitude is contagious. When you're around people who actually have a good mindset of what gratitude is, and you can exposes you, then one thing I feel like maybe that if you don't have gratitude, probably because you haven't been exposed to people who never showed gratitude. You're not exposed to how what gratitude actually looks like. That's why it's good to maybe listen to podcasts like this, to read books, to kind of expose you what gratitude really looks like and what it feels like. And instead of just hearing other people talk about it, and just having gratitude for what your friends are experiencing. You develop that gratitude that even if you can't find anything to be gratitude for yourself or your accomplishments, you can definitely find something to be gratitude for other people's accomplishments. And that can have a domino effect. And, oh, okay, this is what gratitude feels like. Maybe I can find other things that can be gratitude, not only for them, but for other people and for myself. And as I was doing my research about gratitude, I found something called gratitude inhibitors. And these are just a couple examples. I mentioned a list for you. There's a lot more, but starting off with a topic that I've talked about before and something that I'm going to continue talking about is fear. So what if there one thing is fear that there's not enough to have gratitude for? Maybe you don't have enough money, you don't have enough resources, you don't have enough time. You're in fear that you don't have enough any of this, and that prevents you from having gratitude of what you already do have. Another inhibitor of gratitude is having envy and being always needing to compare to people, saying, I wish I had what he had. I wish I had what she had. I wish I had what they had. The issue with social media, and you see the success of others, and it definitely could be the false success of others. I was listening to a golf podcast, and the instructor was talking about don't focus too much when you see these golf trainers or these golf influencers having like one great shot of clips. Just know that this could be one clip of maybe 100 clips, and maybe they only had out of 100 shots, they only had maybe 10% that were decent, and out of those 10%, this one was actually a really the best one. So when they see probably one or two good golf shots from a clip that someone posted, doesn't mean that they're the expert or that they're living their best life playing golf. It just happens that they did a lot of tries, and out of all those tries, just that one success is something that you saw. Don't let that influence you in a negative way. If anything, you should take that as inspiration to better yourself. It's all about mindset and perspective. And when you use social media as something that influences you in a negative way, you should really mold that into something positive. It all depends on perspective. Yes, could some of it be shame you in a negative way? Yes, if you look at it that way. But if you look at it something as more positive and inspirational, which you should, then that is something that you should be doing. Another inhibitor which coincide with fear is the lack of entitlement. So you don't have enough to accomplish this. I'm not worthy to be with that person. They are out of my league. If you're already putting that in your head, then you're probably right. You need to really flip the script on what you think on everything. And if it's something negative, you really need to flip the perspective on being more positive. If you're already thinking in your head that I'm not good enough to be with this person or I'm not good enough for this job, then yes, if that's already in your head, then yes, then you are not good enough. But if you already believe that, then yes, you are that. I would think about a lot with Earl Nightingale, where he talks about you are what you think about. So you are what you consume. You are what you believe yourself to be. Anything this is all about mindset, perspective, that you are what you believe you should be. An opposite of entitlement, a lack of entitlement, it also is another prohibitor is entitlement. So that you deserve this and you deserve more, feeling like you haven't received enough and that you deserve more, not appreciating what you already have. So not appreciating the good job that you already have, that you actually have a job compared to other people who don't have a job or struggling with their jobs. You don't realize the entitlement that you have great things already that you're living and you just don't realize it. So as I was looking, I found that there's 6 ways that you can practice gratitude. The first one is to find a reason to be grateful for. If you're depressed or tired, you just don't find gratitude, get up and take a shower, clean yourself, start your day. Even if you're depressed or down, find some gratitude to find something grateful for. Be grateful that you woke up that day. Be grateful that you woke up today. Be grateful that you'll be waking up hopefully tomorrow as well. Once you start feeling that gratitude for yourself for something that easy, again, it's that domino effect that trickles down to other things that you'll find yourself to be grateful later on during the day. Number two is give thanks to your body by treating it well. So that means eating well, having a good diet and exercise. Move your body. You should be moving your body practically every day. It doesn't always have to be necessarily going to the gym or hitting weights. Good variety of things always helps. A good nice walk, like half an hour to an hour walk. Move your body to exercise. Treat your body like a temple because that's what it is. Not only how you treat it, but what you feed into it, what you eat. I've gotten to a point where I'm just tired of eating a lot of fried food, a lot of processed foods, a lot of fast food places, because I realize that I'm not treating my body well when I'm eating that. Number three is to use words, use positive words like writing, like speaking, sharing these words. Use positive wording when it comes to gratitude. One thing that you should be speaking positive words, like I said, writing affirmations, just speaking those words into existence. Sharing those words, you're not just saying to yourself, but saying to others positive wording that you can expose to other people and make them feel gratitude for themselves. The best thing that you can do is make others feel gratitude for themselves. Even if you don't have gratitude, if you can't find gratitude, the fact that you can make someone else find gratitude is a good gift to provide. Number four, appreciate the little things that you have in your life, whether it's family, friends that you're around. Just be grateful for that you have, even if there's no one that you can really say you have a close relationship with like that. Just be grateful for the life that you have now and the time that you have on this earth. Number five, do something for others. Recognize your strength. These are acts of service that you can do. Something as simple as volunteering. Times when I'm helping at a soup kitchen, it just gives me more gratitude of what I do have because I do see the lack of what others have. And it just makes me grateful that I'm able to be the person on the other end to help those who don't have enough for themselves. And number six, which is the last thing, is be still. So breathe and reflect. So this is something that really helps is like just having a tea or something like coffee and sit down to reflect on everything that you have. So sit down and have some fresh air. I mentioned about like going when I'm in during my meditation process. I can even meditate just having some sit outside and just enjoying some hot tea or coffee. You really have to think about things that you're grateful for. I mean, there's a lot of things that you could be grateful for that you don't realize, and it's probably because you haven't sit down and reflect on it. So that's why I mentioned about meditation helps me do that. Also, want to talk about the Wim Hof method. Recently finished reading the Wim Hof book, and he talks about one thing about his breathing technique, and the really big one is taking 40 deep breaths in and out through the stomach. And when you hold that breath, and you're supposed to hold that breath in between, but just remember it's 40 breaths. So during that breathing process, you can kind of meditate or reflect on everything that you are grateful for. So just kind of go back to what I summarize what I was talking about, like 6 ways to practice gratitude. And one is wake up and find something to be grateful about. Two is giving thanks for your body and treating it well. Three is using words, whether it's writing, speaking, or sharing to others of things that you're grateful for. Number four is having appreciation for the little things. Number five is doing something for others. So this is the act of service and being kind to others. And number six is just being still, breathe, and reflect on everything that you are grateful for. All right, so that's all I wanted to talk about gratitude. I think I've summarized it enough. Hopefully, you all left with a lot, was able to sponge up a lot about gratitude and exposes you about the wording of gratitude, and hopefully makes you feel more able to be gratitude not only for yourself but for others. So, as I close this episode, I wanted to close it with a recommendation. Usually it's either a quote or something that I kind of recommend for people to do. And today's episode is going to be about practicing the art of philosophy of Wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi, if you never heard of it, is a Japanese aesthetic and worldview centered on finding beauty in imperfection and permanence in incompleteness, embracing rustic simplicity, natural processes, and the patina of age. It's more about appreciating the raw, unpolished, and humble, finding serenity in things like cracks in pottery or weathered wood rather than seeking flawless perfection. So, everything that you've experienced in your life, even though I mentioned before about you being the perfect that you are now. So, all that you've experienced in your life, even if it's physical scars or mental scars, this is what makes you who you are today. Your imperfections are what makes you unique from other people. You shouldn't hide those scars. You shouldn't feel insecure about your scars, whether there's something that shows physically or even mental scars in your life. These are opportunities that make you the interesting person that you are, to make you unique as you are. When I talk about the crack in the Liberty Bell, yes, it's not a perfect bell because of its crack, and I've seen it myself, the long, big crack that it has. I thought it was cracked because maybe somebody dropped it, but it was cracked because of it being wear and tear on it. It's been present in a lot of different unique moments in history, and that's what makes it so great. That's why, even though it's a big regular looking bell with a crack on it, what makes it so perfect is its experience that it's had in its life. Even though you may not see it in you, the things that you think that ugly thing about you is probably what makes you the most perfect you that you are today. So believe in the mindset of Wabi Sabi and start realizing the unique things that are in your life. Once you start realizing your uniqueness, you start having more gratitude of what you have in your life. So that's what all I have to say. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Someday with Jay Barsky. I assure you there's going to be plenty of more episodes to come, more great interviews, more solo podcasts, just more things to come for you. And just always remember that I know you can do it. You know you can do it. So let's do it together. Thank you so much for listening to Someday with Jay Barsky. Hope you gather a lot from this episode of gratitude, and best of luck on everything.